Hello class, today I want to talk to you a little bit about the parts of speech, and this is important to know so that we can talk about the language in class. These are things you probably already know from your previous ESL courses, but I just want to quickly review these with you. So when you have the parts of speech, we're talking about nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, prepositions, articles, and conjunctions. These are actually not all the parts of speech. They can be broken up into even smaller parts. These are the main ones that we're going to talk about in class this year. So I just want to go over each one very briefly with you. So first, let's talk a little bit about nouns. Nouns are more or less people, places, or things, or ideas. This is the basic definition that we use when we're talking about those. Sorry about that. Somebody just beat on my window. I think it was a cat of some kind. But anyway, so nouns can be people. They can be places like New York City. It can be a noun. Things, if you have a dog or a cat or a deer, it can be a noun. Or you can even have ideas. So strength could be a noun. Somebody that has big muscles, they could have strength, and strength could be a noun for them because they have giant muscles. All right. So let's look at a couple examples of sentences of how we could use, or how we can find these nouns. Okay, again, we're talking about nouns. Let's use a sentence, a very simple sentence. Let's say the girl was at her house. Okay? How many nouns are in that sentence? Go ahead and look and see how many nouns you can find in that sentence. Right? This is actually kind of a complicated sentence. Not too complicated, but I should have given you a more basic one for this example. But we're going to say, just for this example, that there's two nouns in the sentence. This is actually a possessive pronoun, but we won't get into that right now. Let's just focus on these two. So we have a girl, we have a house. Both those are things. Let's try one more. The girl buys candy at the store. How many nouns are in that sentence? Go ahead and count them up. All right, if you counted 2, you're wrong. If you said 3, you're right. We have the girl, candy, and store are all nouns. All right, so it's just a very brief review of what a noun is. Let's talk about verbs. Very simply, verbs usually have some sort of action, or they basically connect nouns together. In reality, there's only 2 things that you need to build a sentence, the simplest form. You need a noun, and you need a verb. Oops. If you have both of these things, you can have a sentence. So for example, I could say, Harry, it's a man's name, cried. Remember, verbs mean action. The action is crying, or he cried in the past tense. And Harry's obviously a noun. This is a person. Since he cried, that's a complete sentence. It forms a complete thought. And so that's what makes a sentence. It's important to remember that a noun and a verb has to be in every sentence. So let's look at verbs more closely now. So really common basic verbs are run, walk, jump, play. All these are common verbs. They can be more advanced or more complex by using verbs like endure, I'm losing my train of thought, I'm sorry. Persevere. And so they can be simple or more complex. But verbs tell us what the nouns are doing in the sentence. So if I use this word persevere, what that word means is that you overcome a great challenge. So if you were having lots of tests one week and you didn't think you could do it, but in the end you were able to succeed on all your different exams, you would have persevered through that difficult time in your life. So let's say that Mary persevered after completing the IB program. Okay, first let's find our nouns, just to review real fast. We have Mary and the IB program are both our nouns. The sentence actually has two verbs in it, but our main verb is going to be persevere, obviously, we talked about just a second ago. It shows an action, it shows what Mary did. Even though we can't actually see her persevering, we know that she's persevering because she has success in the end. So that action did take place. Completing is also another verb, and we're not going to go into that right now, but just make sure that you know that verbs are actions. One last thing to say about verbs, and I'll cancel it, or I'll stop this video and pick up in another one, is the verb to be. I'll say this a lot in class, and it's very, very, very important. You know what I'm talking about when I say to be. I'm not talking about Shakespeare, to be or not to be. I'm talking about the verb to be. This is the most commonly used verb in the English language, and it doesn't always have be in this form. It takes very different forms sometimes. So I'm going to list all the forms of to be. We're talking about the present tense. We have is, we have am, we have are. We're going to talk about the past tense. We have was, and we have were. And then the future, we'll have will be. Okay. But that's not all, actually. And then we have other grammatical forms when we're talking about going beyond the simple present, the simple past, and the simple future. We can also start getting into be itself. We can go to been. We can do being. So these are the different forms of to be, and they're all the same verb in the end. Even though they look different, and like you have is and am that don't even look anything like to be, they're still part of this verb to be. So what does the verb to be mean? I think we already know that, but real quick, to be basically means equal sign, like in mathematics. So if I want to say Mr. Russell, well, I guess we know that's not right. Let's make Mr. Russell a little taller. There we go. We have Mr. Russell, he equals a teacher. So we're going to write that in the sentence. We'd say Mr. Russell is a teacher. So if I'm looking for my nouns in this sentence, I'm a noun, I'm a person, and then I'm also a teacher. A teacher's a thing. You see me in class when I'm your teacher, so that's also a noun. And then our verb, remember every sentence has to have a verb, so our verb is actually to be, and that's the form to be takes in this sentence, okay? Hope that wasn't too boring for you, but always feel free to come back to the video, and you need a refresher course on verbs and nouns, and I'll be putting some later videos up about the other parts of speech. Thank you.